Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday and welcome to Modern Problems Pagan Solutions. Today we're going to be talking about how we can work through depression with our deeds. Depression is pervasive these days and the consequences of it can be extremely tragic. And pagans don't have any special exemption that spares us this experience, so each of us has to learn to cope. But before we dive in, let me put in the rather boring and tedious disclaimer that this video is not meant to take the place of mental health and medical professionals. If you are struggling, please seek the appropriate professional care. Now, I would like to say one thing to the lawyers and the people who pay these lawyers to force us to issue disclaimers before having serious discussions. A pox on you all, because not only have you made the world a more annoying place to live, your efforts to have everything explicitly defined also sends the signal to people that they don't have to exercise good judgment or cultivate common sense. And people who dumb down the world and make communication more unwieldy than it has to be have much to answer for. So, let's move on to the actual topic, shall we? There is a prevailing belief that in order for you to heal, that something external needs to happen in order to spark that healing, and that we're essentially stuck passively waiting for something to happen and left to despair when it doesn't. And I don't really feel the need to comment on just how self-destructive that idea is, because I think it's pretty obvious. And I'm sure all of us can think of examples of people who have bought into or been bullied into that kind of thinking and how things worked out for them. And when people are in the midst of struggling with difficult issues, they're just less likely to look at things objectively. I mean, they're vulnerable. And so when someone is essentially telling them, yeah, you're doomed unless something external to you happens, that's what they tend to absorb. And when people adopt this idea that something has to happen outside of themselves, be it other people changing their behaviors to suit them, or for more favorable circumstances to just emerge spontaneously, or that another person needs to devote themselves to supporting their emotions, it traps people. It makes the problem of depression much worse because they're not focused on solving any issues or doing what's within their immediate power to make their circumstances more manageable, or at least to alleviate some of their symptoms. This worsens the depression and it just makes it more ingrained in that person's being. What isn't emphasized nearly enough is that the majority of the time we need to just go ahead and do the things that are good for us before we actually feel like doing them. There's great psychological power in just getting on with it, as our British cousins would say. For one, that sets the tone within our own minds that the nature of our struggle does not get to overwhelm the rest of our lives. We're imposing some willpower there. For two, by filling our time with other thoughts and different activities, it shrinks the amount of space, time, and attention that we can spare for the depression itself. And on a related note, by forcing ourselves to be more proactive, we're leaning into our personal projective energy, and that lessens the amount of what our receptive energy takes in, and that can be very helpful at times like these. And for three, we are proving to ourselves that despite the depression, we are still capable of taking on life, and that life will go on, and we have what it takes. What we're feeling, even if it's an absence of feeling, a kind of numbness, it will not last forever. There will be another chapter for us. Another way to fight off depression is by pursuing goals that are meaningful to you. It isn't about what anyone else outside of you happens to think about what you want to do or what you like. This is just about you creating a sense of satisfaction in your life that is self-generated, something that is within your control. Some people find this outlet in their hobbies or just reading a good book that they get lost in the story. Or some people find this in their careers, or they engage in volunteer work, or they go outside and they spend time with nature and animals and plants and all that other stuff. But whatever you choose to do, anything is going to help, provided it helps get you outside of your own head and gives you a break from all of the thoughts that drag you down. And sometimes the only thing you can do to escape a detrimental thought pattern is to force your mind to change the subject. And by this, I'm not saying that you need to ignore the root causes of the depression. That still has to be addressed and dealt with. But while we're going through that process, we can take steps to prevent depression from sinking its claws too deeply into our souls. And that's by taking a little bit of willpower and using it to change the subject in our own minds. Now, one of the more destructive aspects of depression is someone becoming convinced that nothing and no one matters, that it's all futile, including themselves. But every time you take action and you do something constructive, you are declaring that it does matter. it is important. You care about it. And this is a beautiful act of defiance, and it's a rejection of the lie that your mind tries to convince you of when you are in a downward spiral. It is our values, pursuing and creating them, that ultimately pulls us out of the hole and saves us. And caring, as much as that might hurt us at times or frighten us because of how vulnerable our hearts is, that caring is actually the cure, and it's not something to run away from. And the key ingredient to navigate through depression does lie within ourselves. We are powerful enough to lift ourselves up. It isn't easy. It takes time, but it is worth it. The rewards are immeasurable because we will know that the low points in life don't last forever, and we can build something constructive during these times. Now, during past periods of my life, depression is something that I did have to wrestle with. Sometimes I have gotten quite low, and these are techniques that I've used in my own life that ultimately helped me. And it did take that time. And I'm not going to insult you or tell you that it was easy or that the snap of your fingers that everything turns around. But it provided me enough space and enough energy to fight my way through to the other side. So I hope it's helpful to you. And if it wasn't, then I hope that you do find something that is helpful to you in your own situation. So if you want to carry on the conversation, either leave something for me in the comment section below, or what would be a much better option is to come and join our Gilded group. Our server is called Blackbird's Brew. There's a link to us in the description box below, and you would be very welcome there. But that will do it for now, and I will see you next time. Bye.